Your phone rings at 6 in the morning and you already know what it means before you answer it. Because nobody calls you at 6 in the morning unless it is either very good news or the end of everything you have worked for. Every professional soccer player starts on a cracked piece of concrete with a ball that is too flat and a name that nobody outside their own street has ever heard. The distance between that concrete and a World Cup pitch is the single largest gap in professional sport. Almost nobody crosses it. This is your life at every level as a professional soccer player. Level 1. You are 7 years old and you have already played more hours of football than most adults play in their entire lives. Not organized football, not training sessions with cones and a coach blowing a whistle, just football. On the street outside your house, on a patch of dirt behind a building, against a wall that has become so familiar to the ball that you can predict the exact angle it will come back before it leaves your foot. Nobody is teaching you tactics. You are learning something that tactics cannot replace. The specific, instinctive relationship between your body and a moving ball that only comes from thousands of unsupervised hours, making thousands of small decisions with nobody watching and nothing at stake except whether the older kids let you play again tomorrow. You get nutmegged by a boy 3 years older than you, and the entire street laughs. You do not cry. You ask for the ball back. This single decision, asking for the ball back instead of walking away, is more than any drill you will ever do in any academy. The actual foundation of everything that comes after. Level 2. A scout watches you play in an unofficial weekend tournament that exists specifically because clubs know talent does not always announce itself through official channels. He says 3 words to your parent that will reshape the next decade of your life. Come to the academy. You walk into a training facility that looks like nothing you have ever stood inside. Manicured grass, proper goals, cones in perfect formation, 60 other children exactly your age who were all told individually by their own scouts that they were special. This is the first time in your life you understand that talent is not rare in the way you assumed it was. It is everywhere. What is rare is what happens to talent under structured pressure, repeated assessment, and direct comparison to 60 other equally talented children week after week for years, in a system explicitly designed to eliminate almost everyone in the room. You do not know this yet. You just know the grass is the nicest grass you have ever stood on, and you intend to never stand anywhere else again. Level 3. This is the level that ends more careers than injuries do. You are 13, 14, 15, somewhere in the specific window where puberty rearranges bodies unevenly, where the kid who was the fastest player in the academy at 11 is suddenly not the fastest anymore because someone else's growth spurt arrived first, where coaches have to make decisions about potential based on bodies that have not finished deciding what they are going to become. Every year, a list goes up. Some names are on it for next season. Some names are not. You watch friends, genuinely talented children you have trained beside for years, children who wanted this exactly as much as you did. Get a 15-minute meeting with a coach and a directive of staff member that ends, quietly and without ceremony, something they had built their entire identity around since before they were old enough to understand what an identity was. You stay. You do not know why you stayed, and someone else, who looked just as good in training, did not. Neither does the academy, fully, if it is honest with itself. This is the part of the system nobody likes to discuss in public. The margin between staying and being cut is sometimes genuinely too small to explain, and the children on both sides of that margin have to somehow live with a decision that was made about their entire future using imperfect information by adults doing their best. You stay. You feel something that is not quite relief and not quite guilt. You go back to training tomorrow. Level 4. You sign your first professional contract at 17. Your parent is in the room. A lawyer's in the room because by this point the numbers involved require a lawyer even at this early stage. There are clauses about image rights and release fees, and sell-on percentages that you do not fully understand yet, but will spend the rest of your career understanding in increasingly painful detail. This is supposed to be the moment everything becomes real. It is, and it also is not. Because being a professional on paper and playing professional football in practice turn out to be two completely different experiences. You are now the youngest player in a senior dressing room full of men who have been doing this for a decade, who do not automatically respect you just because a piece of paper says you belong here, who will let you know in ways both subtle and not subtle, exactly where you stand in the actual hierarchy of the building. You train with the first team 3 times before you are sent back down to develop further. This is normal. Nobody tells you it is normal in a way that makes it feel normal. You go home and you do not tell your parents how it actually felt. Level 5. This is the part of a professional career that the highlight reels never show because there is nothing to highlight. You are loaned to a smaller club in a lower division, not because your parent club has given up on you, but because the only way to get senior playing time at your age is to go somewhere. The competition for a starting position is less brutal than the one you left behind. You move to a city you have never visited, live in a flat you found online, and try to build a life that you know, structurally, is temporary by design. The football is harder in a way nobody warns you about, not technically harder. Physically harder, players in lower divisions are often older, more experienced at a different kind of football. Fewer cameras, fewer fans, more genuine physical conflict because careers here are fought for with less margin than the academy ever required. You get kicked, literally, more in one lone season than in your entire academy career combined. You also, for the first time, play every single week. Real minutes, real consequences, real pressure that exists because actual results matter to actual people in actual stands rather than the more abstract pressure of impressing a development coach. Some players never come back from a loan. The parent club simply stops calling, and the loan becomes the career, quietly, without anyone formally deciding it should. You do not know yet which version of this story is yours. Level 6. Something clicks, not gradually. Specifically, there's a run of 6 matches where everything you have built across a decade of street football, academy grass, and lone season survival suddenly arrives at the same time, in the same body, in front of the right people watching. You score in a match that gets clipped and shared. The clip does numbers that surprise you. Suddenly, there are journalists at training who were not there last month. There is a transfer rumor with your name in it on a website you used to read as a fan, not as a subject. Your manager pulls you aside after training, not to criticize anything, which is the first time that has happened in longer than you can remember, and tells you, plainly, that people are starting to notice. You go home and you do not sleep properly for 3 nights. Not from anxiety exactly. From the specific disorienting sensation of a decade of invisible effort suddenly becoming visible all at once, faster than your sense of self has had time to adjust to. You are recalled to the parent club. The loan, it turns out, was not the career. It was the proof. Level 7. The 2026 World Cup expanded to 48 nations, which means more players than at any tournament in history will get the call that changes everything. But it also means the competition for a place in your own national squad has somehow gotten more brutal, not less. Because every manager now has more tactical options and less patience for sentiment. Your phone rings at 6 in the morning. You see the country code before you see the name. You answer it standing in your kitchen in your underwear, and a voice you have heard on television your entire life tells you calmly that you have been included in the provisional squad for this summer's World Cup. You do not say anything for a full 3 seconds. The voice on the phone has clearly done this before. They wait. You think in no particular order about the cracked concrete pitch behind the building where you grew up, about the academy cut list with your friends' names on it and not yours, about the lone season tackles that left bruises nobody saw, about every single morning you trained before school because the only available pitch time was 6 a.m. You say thank you. It is a profoundly inadequate sentence for the moment, and you know it, and you say it anyway because there is no sentence that would actually be adequate. You call your parent. They are already crying before you finish the first sentence because they have been waiting for this call for longer than you have been alive in any meaningful sense. Since before you could walk, since the first ball was put in front of you, since every 6 a.m. training session they drove you to without ever once being thanked properly for it. You are going to a World Cup, Level 8. The tournament itself is unlike anything your entire career has prepared you for, because nothing can actually prepare you for it. You train in a facility shared by 48 nations in a country, or one of 3 countries, depending on where your group lands you, that treats your presence as a kind of geopolitical event rather than simply a sporting one. There are immigration questions for your extended family that have nothing to do with football and everything to do with policy decisions made by governments your career has accidentally intersected with. Some of your teammates' parents cannot get visas to watch them play in the country that is co-hosting the tournament their child trained their entire life to reach. You try not to think about this before matches. You mostly fail. You make your World Cup debut as a substitute in the 71st minute of a group stage match in a stadium that holds more people than live in the town where you grew up. And the noise when you step onto the pitch is a physical sensation rather than just a sound. You touch the ball 4 times in 19 minutes. One of those touches is a pass that sets up a goal. The replay of that pass will exist on the internet forever, watched by people who will never know your name, but will recognize the moment, the way certain 4-second clips outlive the careers that produced them. You play in 3 matches across the group stage. Your country does not advance past the round of 16. You cry in the dressing room afterward, in front of teammates who are also crying, and none of you are embarrassed about it, because everyone in that room understands exactly what just ended and exactly what it cost to get there in the first place. Level 9. 18 months after the World Cup, in a league match that means nothing in the wider context of your career, you plant your leg wrong on a surface that was slightly wetter than it looked. You hear the sound before you feel the pain. This is the detail nobody tells you about serious injuries, that there is a specific audible sound your own body makes that you will never be able to unhear, that will arrive in your memory unbidden for years afterward whenever you plant your leg too hard on a similar surface. The recovery timeline they give you is 9 months. It takes 14. You spend more hours in a rehabilitation facility than you spend in the academy that first discovered you, doing repetitive, unglamorous exercises that nobody films, working with physiotherapists who become, for over a year, the people you see more than anyone else in your life. Your body, which spent your entire childhood doing exactly what you asked of it without complaint, has now made a decision of its own. It has limits. You did not fully believe this fact about your own body until it became impossible to ignore. You return to professional football. You are not exactly the same player. You are good. You are still genuinely good. But there is a specific calculation that now runs constantly in the back of your mind during every match, a risk assessment that simply did not exist in your body's vocabulary before the injury, and that you now cannot make go away no matter how many matches go by without incident. Level 10. You retire at 34, which is considered a long career, which means almost nothing the day it actually happens. You sit in your kitchen, the same kind of ordinary domestic space where your phone once rang at 6 in the morning and changed the entire shape of your life. And you understand, fully for the first time, that the sport that organized every single day since you were 7 years old no longer requires anything from you. This is supposed to feel like freedom. For the first few months, it mostly feels like falling. You take a coaching badge, not immediately. Not because you know exactly what comes next, because the alternative, simply stopping after 27 years of a single relentless organizing structure, turns out to be its own kind of impossible. You start working with the academy that cut some of your childhood friends decades ago, the same kind of institution, in a different city, with a different list of names that will go up at the end of this season, with some names on it for next year and some not. You look at the current crop of 13-year-olds training on grass, nicer than anything you stood on at their age. You recognize something in one specific kid. Not talent exactly, though the talent is obviously there. The thing you recognize is the specific way he asks for the ball back after getting nutmegged by an older boy instead of walking away. You do not say anything to him yet. You just watch, and you remember the cracked concrete, and you understand finally, completely, what the entire journey actually cost and what it gave back, and that both of those numbers are larger than you ever let yourself calculate while you were still living inside the story instead of looking back at it. Every professional soccer player starts the same way. A kid, a ball, a wall that knows the angle before the ball leaves their foot. Almost none of them make it past level 3. The ones who do spend the rest of their careers discovering that every level after that has its own version of the academy cut. The loan that becomes permanent, the call-up that never comes, the injury that ends things on a Tuesday in a match nobody outside 2 cities was watching. The ones who make it all the way to the call-up, to the tournament, to the retirement that finally lets them exhale. They will tell you, if you ask them honestly, that none of it felt the way they imagined it would feel when they were 7 years old, asking for the ball back. It felt like more, and it felt like less, sometimes in the same exact moment. Subscribe. Tell me which level hit different. Drop the next topic below.